Okay. So, welcome everyone to our to FEANTSA's International Women's Day webinar. We are still letting in participants, so I wait a few more seconds before we starting the webinar. Okay. So welcome everyone. Good morning. As you may know, in this webinar we are launching our collection of good practices on addressing women's homelessness. Some of the organizations included and projects included in the good collection are here with us as participants, and some have also volunteered to share today some highlights of their work with women. Our time is limited, but we have a good 90 minutes to discuss this important topic. I just want to say that this collection is really the work of FEANTSA women. Over the past few years, we have been hearing about many excellent projects addressing women's homelessness, and we thought it was important to bring them together in one place so that others can learn from them, and these projects can also inspire others. In FEANTSA, we believe in exchange and knowledge sharing and learning from each other, and we have seen how projects can lead to concrete changes in services and how they can improve support for women experiencing homelessness. Without taking up more time, I just would like to thank everyone for contributing to this publication. As you will see, it includes a wide range of services from supporting pregnant women to housing first projects and peer work initiatives. If I'm not wrong, we have 25 good practices altogether. And today, in this webinar, the speakers also represent a broad range of services and countries. So, just a second. This is the our good practice guide, and these are the speakers today. So I just briefly introduce them. We have Maria Mitzelena from Bisitegui, Spain, Vincent Morival, Abeille Solidarité, France, Delia Aguila from Assis, Spain. Unfortunately, Esther from Housing First for Women Berlin could not attend today. But in the second session, we have Lucy Campbell from Single Homeless Project from the UK, Triona McCormack from Tenton, Ireland, Anna Balogi from Streets to Homes Association from Hungary, and Anne Kalhoven from Otambur, France. So thank you for joining today. I suggested to all the speakers to share a short overview of their work in a few minutes. And to make sure that we hear from everyone, please keep the presentation to about 5 minutes. And as you see on the screen, we will have 2 sessions, each lasting 20 minutes, which will be followed by the question and answer session. For that, please send your questions either in the chat box or in the question and answer box. You can address your questions to individual speakers or to the panels. Just want to say that this webinar is really meant to be just give you a taste of the practices in the collection. We will not have, unfortunately, time to go into details on each project, but later in the year we are planning thematic webinars where we can explore some of the themes in more detail and depth. I also would like to emphasize that this good practice collection we are hoping to be a living document, so we hope that it will grow as new practices emerge. So please do share your work with us. We will be happy to include them in future updates. I'm aware that the time is passing, so let's begin with our first session. Maria, the floor is yours.
Hello. Hello, and first, thank you for giving us the opportunity to present and share with you our experience. First of all, I will introduce myself. Like you said, I am Maria Michelena from Visitegi, and now I'm going to share with you our project Borobiltzen. Borobiltzen is a supportive program for women experiencing homelessness from an intersectional perspective. When you want, you can change to next slide. Borobiltzen is a working group from the Visitegi Association that focuses on women. It has a day center and several flats. It combines stable accommodation with continuous social support. Indeed, it is a project that adapts and includes ongoing research to develop new responses for the homeless women. The aim is to generate services that prevent social exclusion and empowerment. In April of 2025, Visitegi launched the La Mia BBK Woman Hostel in Bilbao. This hostel is innovative and it is a safe and comfortable space. It brings together women travelers and homeless women within the same environment. La Mia BBK Woman Hostel seeks to create community experience and authentic connections. Next slide, please. In this slide, we want to share with you one experience in Borobiltzen. As you can read, it is an experience of a woman that arrived at Bilbao and she was living on the street for 5 months. She contacted Borobiltzen and she lived at the beginning in La Mia BBK Woman Hostel, and now she is living in one of the apartments of Visitegi Borobiltzen project. Next slide. Okay, that's all from my side. I hope you like our project and it has been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. It was very brief, but we can maybe go into more details of the project later. And now I pass the floor to Vincent. The floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Vincent Morival. I'm the director of First Line Services at Abèche Solidarité. It's a third sector organization, association as we say in French, which is only in the north of France. And so you can get to the next slide. And so I'm going to talk about the Maison Corinne Maziro, which is a women-only housing and harm reduction project. We are very lucky because we got money and we could do anything we wanted. And so when you can start from scratch and do anything you want, we managed to create a project that was designed for homeless women that we could not help before, and that those women were experiencing prostitution, severe marginalization, addiction, and gender-based violence. And so, as you can see, we have 11 accommodation units in the house. And since the beginning 3 years ago, we started on the 8th of March 2023, we had 68 different women. So next slide, please. So we managed to get a very high budget in a very hard time for France. So we were very lucky for that. And we decided to address really specific women that we knew we had not for a long time, and we could not help. So we, in this house, it's open 24 hours, 7 days. There are social workers all the time. There is a nurse and a psychologist who come every day. And so the women can talk to people anytime they want. We developed that with another association, which is Cedragir. And so we had two different organizations. At Abèche Solidarité, we specialize in people who live in extreme marginalization. And Cedragir is more about addiction care. And so we have 68 different women who are with there. And it's a very rare long-term alternative to traditional shelters. Next, please. Can you put the next slide, please? Okay. There is one before. The next one, there is one in between. Yeah, yeah, this one. So this house is very different from the other centers because we are not here to provide accommodation. We're here to reduce the risks for drug users, and for reducing the risk, the house is the tool for that. And we respect the rhythm of the women, and we don't have any conditions to come in. People can come with women can come with their animals. They can come with their alcohol. They have all their own spaces. So taking drugs is illegal in France, so we don't allow it. But in their personal spaces, they can do anything they want. And like with that, we are able to accommodate them. And the women decide how long they stay in the house. If they leave the house for more than 3 days, they lose their space. But if they come back every day, they can stay there as long as they want. And that's very different to say the women are responsible for their own accommodation, and we don't decide who comes. It's the outreach teams who send us the women. And so it's very like a place for them, a very safe place. And we decided to make it only for women because in other experiments we had, as soon as there is one man in the room, the thing is different and women don't feel safe. So we really want to give them a safe, supportive space where they feel protected from gender-based violence and exploitation. All of the women we have encountered violence in their life. All of them encountered prostitution because to get their drug, they have to get money, and they do anything they can to get the money. And this non-mixed place, we have, as you can see, I'm a man. We decided that for the team should be mixed because we want them to learn too that men can respect women, and that they don't there is another way to have a relation with a man than facing abuse and violence. And the model has been very successful because we have had women that we have known for like years, and we refused everything we offered them. And in the Maison Corinne Maziero, they just came because they were only women and they felt safe. Next slide, please. And so, yeah, it's very important too to have two different organizations because we learn from each other. It's a very good practice to go outside of your usual field. And at Abèche Solidarité, we really specialize in very marginalized people, men and women. And Cedragir is specialized in addiction. And the two of them together, it allows us to do a very specific program, and that is very well adjusted to women. And the Maison is named after the French actress and activist Corinne Maziero. And the name was chosen with the women of the house. And Corinne Maziero is a woman who suffered from prostitution, from outside. She's a very famous French actress. And as I put there, there is a quote from somebody in our staff. And we really wanted this house to be feminist. And I'm speaking as a man, and I know it's a little weird because all the rest of the people are almost women, but they don't speak English good enough, so I had to do it. But really, we really want the house to be feminist. The women we have, they are not really necessarily feminist or activists, but we are. And in the house, we have everywhere posters that say, rights about the women. And they say it's really a tool for us. Feminism is really a tool for us to empower the women we have. And we really have a lot of good results, because in the 68 women that came from the beginning, almost a third of them found their way back to normal housing or to special housing because they had too many problems. So we are really happy to have done that. And I will answer any question you have because my time is up.
Thank you, Vincent. It is a very interesting and inspiring practice indeed, especially because it's not only like create safe and supportive space for women with a strong harm reduction approach, but also good example of cross-sectoral work, which is indeed needed if we want to address women homelessness. Thank you, Vincent, again. So our next speaker is Delia from ASIS. Delia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Do you have my presentation? There it is, there. Well, my name is Delia, and I'm the coordinator of JAR Rosario and Rinal, which I'm going to explain in a minute. So you can pass to the next slide. Well, first of all, just to give some context, so we are a charity in Barcelona in a small neighborhood called Sarrià, and we exist since 2001, and we offer social and emotional care as well as practical support to those experiencing homelessness in Barcelona. If you can pass to the next slides, please. I just want to try to keep it brief. So in 2016, we detected like an urgent need to incorporate gender perspective in all we do as an organization. And we created a specific tailored offer to women and LGBTIQ plus identities that are experiencing homelessness, mainly because, as we all know, services are not designed for purpose, and women and individuals and identities that are LGBTQ plus are usually feel unsafe in those spaces. So ASIS started addressing, and this is pretty much the chronology on how we have been incorporating and implementing different services and offers. And that comes in a form of dedicating a specialist team in our day center. It means opening different residential solutions to women that are halfway through their lives and they need a place to connect with themselves and then come back to look for employment, for example. And then finally, we started thinking about that group of women that perhaps don't fit any of those criteria and they suffer from chronic homelessness. So that's how the JAR Rosario and Rinal was born. And but if you look at the chronology, we start thinking as an organization about Rosario back in 2016, but obviously there was a pandemic and so many things happened, but we finally materialized the building in 2024. So we're quite new. It's been up and running for 2 years. If you can pass to the next slide. Well, this is a picture of one of the apartments. We have 10 self-contained apartments in a building, and we use a housing first approach, which I will explain in a minute briefly. If you can give me the next slides. I don't know, probably all of you know by now the housing first methodology, but the criteria to access EJAR Rosario and Rinal is to, we're aiming to basically give response to those experiencing chronic homelessness, multiple disadvantages, including physical health, mental health, lacks of social network, survivors of multiple violence, which is something that is quite characteristic about being a woman and have been through the traumatic experience of being homeless, and problematic use of substance. Particularly, I would say it's important to highlight the lack of social network, because even though we work under a housing first methodology approach, what makes us very unique is that we also add another dimension, which is living in a communal space. And we are funded by the Barcelona City Council. If you can pass the next slide. And we use the methodology that we basically inspire our work by the housing first principles, but we add, as I mentioned, the communal housing first model, which is quite unique and rare. So actually we are pioneers in Spain, and this is the second project in Europe that uses this approach. The principles of housing first are applicable to us. So right to housing, have capacity for action and agency. We offer unconditional housing, so we compromise. We have an aim to basically offer accommodation for life, potentially, if that's what the person wants to have. Obviously, they can leave at any point as any private landlord, or we treat the communal housing first approach as a way of give a guarantee of your right to housing, and we give the women a tenancy agreement, and we follow as what a regular citizen would do when they go to rent an apartment. We work under the lenses of damage reduction and harm reduction. We use an active commitment without coercion, meaning that there is no conditions to join us. We accept the women as it comes, so there is no need to address their drug dependency, or if they have any diagnosis of mental health. There is no need for them to comply with medication. So it's all the housing first principles, but apply into a communal space. What is slightly different is that we incorporate a gender perspective, obviously, and we work under person-centered perspective too. If you can pass the next slide. I thought it was important to just mention we're a small team, but we assist 10 women, and this is always a bit controversial with housing first. Like, why do you need so many professionals to cover and to give assistance to 10 people? But as we know, if you have worked in housing first, if you're aware of the model, is one of the principles to have small caseloads, and because of the complexity of the cases that we assist, we have a clinical psychologist, a social worker, 2 support workers, and then we have a specialist nurse that is specialized in harm reduction, and that is the composition of our team currently. Next slides, please. sorry, it feels a bit rushed because I would like to go into so many details of what we do and how we do it, but we got limitation of 5 minutes, which I'm probably exceed by now. But some of the challenges, obviously working with anyone that suffers from complex needs and has been exposed to a long-term homelessness is in itself a challenge. Working with the stigma and self-stigma, working under an intensive case management, and also adding the community models, so the things that will come up in coexistence. We have assemblies where all the women living in the block of flats are responsible to set up their own agreements, and that in itself is a very challenging process to implement, to make them own the space, and it's a work in progress. As I explained, we've been up and running for only 2 years, so we go with what's alive in the project, and it's constantly changing because of the individual needs of the women, but also with what's happening in the community dimension. But obviously there is so many opportunities, and I hope a project like this can serve as an inspiration to bring more models like Rosario and Rinal, because the community aspect that we have is been designed to address isolation. So rather than a dispersed housing first approach, where you might have to start from scratch, and the element of building up a network, it can be challenging. Whether you have a communal space, you can build those relationships and feel supported. So that is an opportunity, but also a challenge, I would say. But yeah, I would like to move to the next slide to not to take more time. Well, we have the privilege to be under a research study by the University of Barcelona, and this is being released. You could find it, and I'm happy to share this information. So we are capturing some of the challenges and opportunities that we saw in the previous slide, but also looking at how this model can impact in the individual development of each of the women that are living in JAR, Rosario and Rinal, and especially with the focus on the methodology. And finally, just to wrap up the final slide, is a sentence from, because I forgot to mention that why we are called Rosario and Rinal. And Rosario and Rinal basically was women who was experiencing homelessness in Barcelona, in the Sarrià neighborhood where we are based. And she was killed in 2005 after she was set on fire while sleeping in an ATM. And we asked permission to her family to name the building to honor her. And this is a sentence from her daughter that I wanted to capture. Sorry, I felt I was a little bit nervous, and also it's a lot to say, and it's difficult to compress the information, but I'm open to more questions after this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delia, for this excellent presentation. I think we all would have loved to hear you more, and because it is a very interesting and practice, especially because of its focus, emphasis on the community and the social network. We are planning to do a webinar on housing first for women later this year. So we really hope to see you back in that webinar. Our next speaker was Esther from Housing First for Women Berlin, but I'm not sure if she could make it today, but it's also an excellent example of how Housing First can be tailored to specific needs of women, and you can find the good practice in the collection. And so we are doing very well with time. Oops, sorry, what did I do? I just check now the chat, and I just saw a message that unfortunately Esther is not able to join. I also saw a question about the sharing of the slides. Yes, we're going to share the slides after the presentation and the recordings as well with you. If you have any questions to the speakers, please don't hesitate to share them. And now we can move on to our next session. And I give the floor to Lucy.
Thank you very much, Dalma. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here today. My name's Lucy Campbell, and I work for a homelessness charity based in London, England, and we're called Single Homeless Project. And the project that I'd like to talk about today is a data collection exercise that we do every year for the last 4 years called the Women's Rough Sleeping Census. As you can see, there's a lot of logos on this title slide here, and that's because the Women's Rough Sleeping Census is a real partnership endeavour. So a number of organisations from the homelessness sector and the women's or the domestic abuse sector kind of really came together to try to do this project, and it's kind of grown year on year since then. So yeah, it really is a real partnership approach that we use. So I'm just going to talk very briefly about why this project started before I talk about how it works and what methodology we use. So basically in England, since 2010, rough sleeping has been measured using snapshot counts. So this is an approach where every year on a single night, people who are experiencing rough sleeping are counted. And that's rough sleeping according to being seen kind of physically sleeping out on the streets on that single night. And because of the fact that we know very well, and I'm sure all of you on this call will be aware of this, we know that women experience constant risk of violence and abuse when they're rough sleeping and homeless, and they're far less likely to kind of put themselves in obvious and exposed areas like the streets at night when they're sleeping rough. They're much more likely to be hidden. Because of that, what we were seeing every year was a really small proportion of women only were being picked up in that data. So every year we would see the government figures telling us that it was only about 15% of the rough sleeping population in England were women. And we knew from, you know, the examples from multiple organisations working with women, we knew from women themselves that that just wasn't the case. It was the fact that the methodology used was not finding women where they were. It wasn't understanding women's rough sleeping specifically. So we wanted to develop a way to reach women who are much more hidden in their homelessness and really give voice to their experiences. And that's how the project came about in 2022. So next slide, please, Dalma. So how does the Women's Rough Sleeping Census work? So we have a 2-part methodology, and this methodology was designed, as I said, by a lot of different organisations coming together, sharing expertise, but also really crucially, it was designed by women who had experienced rough sleeping themselves, telling us, you know, how to do this, what would work for them, where would we find them. So the first way we collect data is every September. It's usually the last week of September. There is a 7-day period where we do a census survey. So it's a short survey. It's about 10 questions. It's completely anonymised, and we ask women about their recent experiences of rough sleeping and homelessness. So where they've been, you know, what kind of places they're staying in, where they were before, etc. And we find women to do that survey with during that week in a variety of ways. So we give direction to teams to do what we call gender-informed outreach. So that's an outreach practice where we're looking in all of the maybe more hidden locations that women tell us that they are. We do outreach during the day as well as the night, because we know sometimes at night women are even less visible. And we also ask lots of different services, so health services, drug and alcohol services, community services, any service that might support or encounter women, to do that survey with women that they see during that week. So it's not just the kind of the world of homelessness that does this, we're really getting it across different services in every local authority. So that's the census survey, and that's done over 7 days. And then in the month of October, we also ask each local authority to do what's called a local insights meeting. And that's again when different kinds of teams, different kinds of services and agencies come together and share data on women that they know have been rough sleeping in the last 3 months. And that's kind of really factual data using women's names and dates of birth, which are then cross-referenced to remove duplicates. So at the end, each local authority has a really kind of strong, robust evidence base of women who they know are rough sleeping, and also that survey response telling us about women's experiences. And one of the things that we do with this survey, we don't ask about violence and abuse or anything too personal because we don't want to re-traumatize women, but we have a free text box at the end of the survey. And as you can see, an example of what a respondent put there. So I don't have the money to go into restaurants for shelter. I have to put myself at risk and do things I don't want to do so I can get shelter for the night. And I have to say, one of the most compelling but difficult parts every year when we analyse this data is just reading hundreds and hundreds of accounts of women from all over the country talking about their experiences of not just rough sleeping, but domestic abuse, sexual violence, sexual exploitation, physical assaults on the street, and just awfully devastating, dangerous situations that they're having to face every day. And women are choosing to kind of give us that information. As I said, we don't ask that question, but they're choosing to tell us. So it really is kind of an urgent call for us to do more with this data and use it to kind of change policy and practice. Which leads me on to the next slide. So what have we done since we started the census in 2022 with all of this data that we're gathering every September and October? Well, first of all, I think what's really positive about the Women's Rough Sleeping Census is how much it's grown across the country. And actually, we need to do an updated map for 2025 because actually this most recent September 2025, the census went into the far northeast of England as well, which was great. And we had the most local authorities ever take part. But as you can see, it started as a pilot just in London. And, over the last 4 years, it really has grown. So more and more areas, local authorities in England are saying, actually, we really do need to reach women. We really need to hear what they've got to say, and we need to collect better data and evidence on how we can support them. So we've reached, thousands of women over that time. So we've got this huge body of data now telling us how, when, and where women experience rough sleeping in England. And also quite compellingly, when we compare that to the government snapshot data that's collected every year, we see a huge disparity. So in 2024, we're just doing the 25 report now. In 2024, we saw more than 10 times the amount of women identified using this gender-informed methodology than using traditional methods which overlook women. And as it says at the bottom there, their voices are being used to make changes locally and nationally. So we've got some fantastic examples of what local authorities do with their data, designing and commissioning and funding new services, changing rough sleeping and homelessness strategies and policies, doing regular gender-informed outreach in their areas, all sorts of things, specialist women's roles being funded, because actually without that data, it's really difficult to make the case for anything to change. So it's been really inspiring to see how organisations have used that data and how councils have used that data as well. And the last slide, please. And finally, I think a real achievement of the census in England has just been really putting women's rough sleeping on the map, really, and in the public domain. As you can see, lots of kind of newspaper headlines there. We've had some kind of television coverage in different areas across the country. But really, this wasn't something which was being talked about 5-6 years ago. Women's rough sleeping was really seen as a small issue, a minority issue. It wasn't really in kind of public discourse, certainly. So we think it's really important that actually those thousands of women who are telling us their stories and giving us their data, their voices are heard, and we really are using them to campaign for further change. So if anyone's interested in finding out more, we'll be launching the new Women's Rough Sleeping Census report in May. I haven't got a date yet, but I'll make sure Dalma has that if you'd like to come along and find out what the most recent data tells us. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy. It is great to hear how this adapted data collection method that captured 9 times or even 10 times more women rough sleeping that the traditional counts do has led to the development of new services and designing new services which are gender informed. So that's great to hear. Thank you so much, Lucy. I'll pass now the floor to Fiona from Tintone, Ireland.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Trina. I'm the manager here in Tintone Housing in Waterford City. We're a standalone charity based in the southeast of Ireland, an approved housing body providing transitional, emergency and long-term accommodation to people experiencing homelessness. All of our accommodation is supported, which means that we have a team of people constantly looking after their needs. I suppose what I'm here to talk about this morning is one of the groups we run in Tintone in our transitional service. Our transitional service is female specific, so hitting that gender specific brief here this morning. And it was a group that was brought about in response to what we recognised as a critical gap in providing safe spaces for mothers separated from their children. Next slide, please, Dana. So I suppose where this came from, I suppose, was the brainchild of the previous manager, Claire O'Sullivan, who some of you may have met previously, because she was looking into kind of, you know, we presumed there would be kind of lots of desktop research out there to establish best practice in supporting women separated from their children. And I suppose what we came up with was, you know, a brick wall. There was very, very little out there. So we looked into our own service and the skill sets we had, and we decided to create a supportive and educational group for the mothers in our service separated from their children. Next slide. And just noting that love is a universal language that everybody can speak about, but I suppose when we look at a mother's love and you know, a mother who is separated from her children, you know, how that's shut down for them, how that, you know, language just disappears, how they feel stripped of their title of mother. We wanted to bring that back. We wanted to honor the mothers that they are, and acknowledge that being separated from your children doesn't mean that you are no longer a mother. Next slide. So how did we make it happen? I suppose we started by circulating a survey to all of our residents in service, asking for their input. Nothing for them without them is one of our, nothing for you without you is one of our mantras here in service. So once we got the surveys back, we looked to do an individual one-to-one sessions with the project workers and the resident to really kind of deep dive into, you know, how they would feel about contributing to and creating a space. And 100% of the moms with us here who expressed interest in it, you know, they really, really wanted to buy into, you know, the need and the want, and acknowledge the need and the want for the space for themselves. And next slide. And some of the responses from the survey, which are really worth noting, you know, and really hit home for us and our ideas, was, you know, statements like, I feel no joy at the moment, I'm heartbroken. I don't know what my purpose is. I have no involvement in my children's lives. Next slide. So at the start of the group, we heard statements from the girls. I failed. I don't think I deserve to call myself a mother. People think I chose drugs over my children. And I suppose when we look at homelessness and we look at substance use and mental health, we know that they are deeply interconnected, and that sometimes mothers face an even deeper shame and stigma by, you know, being homeless or being entrenched in substance use and having mental health issues. Next slide, please. So what we started at the start of the group, we started with a relational agreement, an agreement for the group to be open to mothers only who are separated from their children, a request for it to be facilitated by staff, but only staff who are mothers. And I suppose that was integral to those women, that there was an understanding of what it is to be a mother. And then an agreement that, you know, that there was a priority for that space. It was set in stone every Thursday at 3:30. Next slide, please. So the themes we looked to cover included Kubler-Ross's stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and meaning, similarities and differences of grieving when a person is still alive. You know, you know, a lot of the women would have said that they experienced a grief that, you know, it was almost like their child had died because they had no access. So that complicated grief, you know, acknowledging feelings, naming feelings, and normalizing feelings, you know, just letting them know it's okay to feel this way because maybe they've been shut down before and told that they don't have a right to feel a certain way. Next slide, please. Yeah, again, on the themes, impact of the stress on the body, you know, the stress that comes with being separated from your children and the stress on your nervous system. You know, the stress responses, the typical stress responses, fight, flight, freeze and fawn. The impact of stress from the trauma. And again, normalizing these feelings as survival responses, that they're not bad responses, they are survival. It is who you are today and it is how you are getting through your separation and your grief and your loss. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then self-care. What does self-care to reduce that stress look like? You know, the value of a really good sleep hygiene, meditation, exercise, friendships, you know, coming together and sharing your stories. The power of sharing, you know, some of our women would have said things like they didn't know that another woman was a mother because they had such shame and stigma around saying that their children were, you know, they were separated from their children or that the children were in care. So actually what we found was that, you know, one of our ladies had 2 children, but her peers in the group only knew about 1. Next slide, please. So then, yeah, we looked at sharing birth stories and sharing experiences, giving the women the power to actually talk freely about this and their joy at giving birth or you know, what was happening after the birth. Was baby taken straight away? Was there a period of time after, you know, that baby came home with them and then later went into care, how all of that went for them, and how to speak to others about your situation. Next slide, please. Planning for special events that you might not be part of, you know, the coping skills. So a child's birthday, a first Holy Communion or confirmation, first day to school, Christmas, Mother's Day. Mother's Day was a big one, and Christmas actually got a session all of its own because there was so much involved in missing Christmas with your children. Next slide, please. How to communicate with professionals in child and care reviews. That was a really, really interesting session because I suppose women are seen differently as mothers to men. You know, their anger can be perceived as threatening and abusive. You know, and so we spent some time looking at, you know, grounding exercises ahead of going into these child and care reviews, practicing their communication skills. So how can we get our feelings across without being seen as a hysterical female? You know, how to speak for yourself and not have other professionals speaking on your behalf, that self-advocacy piece, coping skills to hear what you maybe don't want to hear, and how do you cope with hearing that? You know, maybe you're going to be told that no, you still can't have supervised access, and how do we cope in that moment? And naming and owning their feelings, that their voices are heard throughout this, and that their feelings are heard and accepted as valid, real feelings by being separated from their children. Next slide, please. So as the group progressed and the stories were shared, you know, it was really lovely to see, you know, that commonality and that realization among the women, where they were saying things like, oh my God, she has the same story as me. I'm not alone in this. I am trying my best, and people can see I'm trying my best. And actually that acceptance and you know, it was a really heartwarming moment for us when they accepted that they are still a mother and that they can still be a mother. Next slide, please. Post-group survey responses. So we, again, after the group, because we're always looking to evolve, and this was, you know, a pilot group at the start. This was our first one. So we sent around a survey to get feedback on it, because it was their group. Again, nothing for you without you. And the responses we got were that we had confidentiality. We could speak openly about our kids. We could get upset, laugh or cry and still feel safe with the people in the room. I was able to speak about my experiences with TUSLA, that's the Child and Family Agency here in Ireland, and my family, things I've never spoken about before. I felt a massive weight off my shoulders. Next slide, please. When I lost custody of my kids, I didn't feel like a mother anymore. I felt I lost all those rights to brand myself as a mother up until we done the Mother's Hope group. Now I feel I have rights as a mother again, and I'm hopeful. I don't feel alone anymore. Next slide, please. And that brings an end to the kind of oversight of the Mother's Hope group. I suppose from that we then actually did a reflection report on the group, and we have produced a facilitator's guide, which we've actually shared with other peer services here in Ireland, and are happy to share out wide too. So anybody who has any questions or wants to kind of reach out to me about that, please don't hesitate to. I know this is being recorded, but yeah, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much, Triona, to highlight this important issue, which I'm sure it resonates with others as well, as we are often hear how women who are mothers are unrecognized, not recognized in services, and we will make sure that we will also share with participants the report and the guidance you mentioned. Hopefully they will find it useful in their work. Thank you again, Triona, and we can now move on to our next speaker, Anna. The floor.
Yes. Hello, my name is Anna Balogi, and I work in Hungary, Budapest, at From Streets to Homes Association. We are a medium-sized NGO, and we are the only organization that does only housing first type of long-term housing, first type of housing programs in Hungary. Please go to the fourth slide, Dalma. Thank you. Yes, and we work with rough sleepers, we work with young people leaving state care, we work with refugees coming mostly from Ukraine, and also we run a social housing agency. And throughout our work, we have realized that women have very different and complex needs, and almost all of our female clients have been victims of gender-based violence throughout their life, either in their childhood or presently. And a few years ago, we decided to pay a special attention to gender-based violence, and now we are looking for the signs of it, starting from the first interview. Many times we have couples moving in from the street, and we pay separate attention to women, and we have a separate interview with the couples. We have many activities within our women's program, and the aim is to provide a safe environment, either in individual sessions or group sessions, where experiences and feelings can be shared. And also we always support the victims, and we acknowledge their feelings. Next one, please. Thank you. Our activities consist of the following. We have a monthly women's club, which is attended mostly by elderly women. It wasn't planned like this, but this is how it ended up. And therefore, we started to run another group for younger women. And the common point is that they are, all of them are mothers, and they raise younger children. In the group, we focus on strengthening self-esteem and building peer connections. And we always work with the topic of gender-based violence, the structural causes of gender-based violence, and how to keep boundaries, how to say no, and how to represent your own interests. We organize every year a beauty day for only women. We have a peer support program, and we always give training to our peers. And yes, next please. And yes, we have very specific things that we do, which are quite unique in Hungary, in housing programs, that we always, if a couple moves in, we always write the rental contract or the housing support on the name of the woman, just in case there is violence. It shouldn't be the victim who has to leave or who is losing her housing. Also, if needed, we can raise or differentiate the level of housing support. For example, when she needs to quit the relationship. We provide intensive social work as long as needed. We work based on housing first principles. As I said, we have separate sessions with men and women when a couple arrives to us. And if there is a sign of violence, we always stand beside the victim. Also, we serve trauma-informed care, and we regularly participate in trainings for staff. Next one, please. This focus on female clients have been going on for many years. And by the end of last year, we developed an internal policy document, like a protocol, which contains what we should do when we get to know that our client becomes a victim of violence. What is the approach that we follow? What are the specific steps and pathways within our organization? We developed it based on a series of workshops with our own social workers. So it's based on our experiences. And we made a shorter and a more general version of this policy, which is called the manual, and we published it this January. You can download it from our website, and I think it can be useful if you work with victims of gender-based violence. Yes, and besides our training for staff, we consciously build cooperations around the topic. We are participating in an EU funded project, and also we are part in a network of Hungarian NGOs. And we always, in every activity of ours, we keep this focus in front of our eyes, that we pay special attention to women. Thank you very much. Yes, and our challenges. Sorry, we face many challenges, because if we refer women to family support center or childcare services, there are many systematic barriers and challenges, and victims are mostly not supported properly by authorities and institutions. In our social rental agency, most of our clients are single mothers, so for them it's even more difficult to survive economically and to stay autonomous. We are trying to challenge gender stereotypes within our groups and with our clients. But we can see that it's a very long-term job to work with women and really empower them and support in finding their own ways of decisions. Yes, and I think this is the end of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for sharing your work on how you integrate the women focus in everything you do. We'll also make sure that the the manual that you mentioned will be available for participants. And we are actually on time, and our next speaker is Anne, who asked me to share a web page. So it's a technical issue. It might take some time for me, but I try.
It's okay if it's not possible, Dalma. It's okay.
Oh, but I'll try. Oh, no.
You want to start?
Pardon?
Do you
Yeah,
want to start?
maybe you can start, and
Yes.
maybe I try to. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Hello, everyone. I'm Anne, the founder and CEO of Au Tambour, which is based in Lyon. Thanks for having me today. I'm so happy to have discovered all of your projects, some of which really resonate with Au Tambour. Au Tambour is a feminist and anti-racist organization based in Lyon. In 2020, we opened the first woman-only day center for cis and transgender single women experiencing homelessness, all of whom are survivors of gender-based violence. Last year, we welcomed 377 different women. Our team, also women only, is composed of 5 professionals, including 3 social workers. Our mission is to provide a safe, dignified space where women can find support, of course, rest, access to healthcare, hygiene, and their rights. Our work is based on an intersectional and systemic approach, recognizing that homeless and gender-based violence are interconnected. Building on this, we're developing a training program for social sector professionals to help them better understand and address these overlapping challenges. Whether in France, Europe, or across the world, we are all operating in a challenging context. Rights are shrinking, xenophobia and masculinism is on the rise. This is creating significant ethical distress for, I think, all of us. Daily exposure to stories of trauma, violence, precarity, combined with limited housing or asylum solutions and institutional barriers can generate vicarious trauma, anger, frustration, and feelings of powerlessness. Welcoming and supporting women is deeply committed work. It is activist work that engages the emotions and energy of our teams. The psychological risks are real and well documented and must be addressed. That's why we have placed staff well-being at the center of our approach at Au Tambour. We, as women, are just as important as the women we welcome. Our HR policy aligns with the feminist values we uphold publicly and with our commitment to welcoming women with dignity. We have invested and continue to invest time, resources, like money, into creating a safe, supportive, working environment that responds to both the professional and, whenever possible, personal needs of our team members. Placing staff well-being at the center is essential for us. It helps prevent burnout, depression, and high turnover, which is a major challenge in social work everywhere. It fosters a sense of safety and enables our staff to continue supporting women effectively. To support our team, we have put in place several collective and individual spaces. Morgan, with the COO, and me can always be reached by phone. At the end of each day, we hold debriefs to discuss key cases and urgent situations. We have weekly meetings to review women's cases and talk about maybe the emotions we had. We propose monthly professional practice reflection sessions, and each team member can have an individual session with a psychologist every 2 months. These spaces ensure that our staff feel supported, can manage the emotional challenges of their work, and maintain their ability to provide safe and effective support to the women we serve. At Rothenburg, we believe that taking care of our teams is inseparable from taking care of the women who rely on us, because only a supported, cohesive, and resilient team can truly make a difference in the lives of women. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you so much for raising this very important issue of staff well-being and placing that in the center of your work, and also highlighting the political social context we work in, which is, yeah, as you said, it's challenging context, and it definitely has an impact on our work and on our well-being. And I think what you said about taking care of the team, not that we cannot separate that from taking care of women, I think it's absolutely true and very important in creating this safe and supportive work environment. It's definitely an issue that we would like to follow up as well in more depth later this year. Thank you for your presentations, and we still have a good 20 minutes before the end of the webinar for question and answer sessions, and we have actually received questions. I will go through them. So, question about the slides. I already mentioned that we're going to share the slides and the resources mentioned in the presentation, including the study of the University of Barcelona. A question to Delia. What are the main challenges in integrating intensive care case management versus assertive community models in your work? How do you experience these challenges? Delia?
Yes, I'm sorry, I had difficulties.
No problem.
Well, this is an extremely difficult question to answer, because our project is, and I would say any projects, anyone working in the context of homelessness in general, or in life in general, anything that involves humans is there's an element of unpredictable things to come up. In fact, when the team designed the methodology of Rosario and Rinal, they pretty much design imaginary scenarios of things that could happen and how to mitigate them. And then when the women moved in and we started running the project, some of the scenarios that happened were beyond our expectations, and not for bad. There were some things that we didn't count it would happen, and some of the things that surprised us for good, because I guess we were preparing for for any type of incidents, because we were sort of visualizing how them women who have been living completely isolated, some of them presenting complex needs, so being exposed consistently over time to a number of traumatic events, some of them since childhood. And then if you add the time that they have spent on the streets, and the amount of violence and multiple violence that they have suffered, including systemic and institutional violence, physical, emotional. So obviously we were prepared for all sorts of things to come up. And then what we realize is that thinking about what community means to us as professionals, right, from our positionality, we expect well, community would be people sharing and sort of coming to assemblies and bringing proposals, and or at least we wanted to cultivate that space for things to come up. And in reality, something that we learned is, first of all, when all the women moved to the building, some of them were in their flats, like without wanting to have any social connection. So they just wanted to sleep and rest, and I guess heal for trauma and familiarize themselves with a new reality, and not so much into the community side of things. So they pretty much wanted their individuality, which was against our idea of what community means. And we thought, well, some of them might work better in a dispersed housing first project and not so much into the community. But then it surprised us how the everyday life will bring community in ways that we didn't account, right? We didn't think of, and they start building their own relationships and finding their authenticity on who they are, and unfolding their own individual processes, as well as integrating what community means to each of them. And then we had to create a new reality. So it's a constant challenge to us on how can we keep the intensive case management approach, and how can we regularly meet with them, considering that housing first as a model, it doesn't force that connection, right? Is we can proactively prompt for things to happen, but we have to respect individuality and choices and control over their own lives. But there are times where your decisions could put at risk the community. So it's a constant learning. It's a learning process, and we're still learning as we go along, and we are constantly surprised by how we carefully, and working from a trauma-informed, placed, we move things, we try different approaches, we step back and see what's the impact of doing this or that. So yeah, and also there is another element of living in a communal, which is external visits, or people that come to the building are not necessarily people we know, or we have assessed the risk that they might bring, and that comes with another challenge to us, and how the women can take ownership on self-regulate those visits. How can they express if they feel fear in their own building because someone is bringing visitors that they don't feel comfortable about? And I always think that we have, the good thing about our project is that we have all the time in the world, meaning we don't have to rush, right? We don't have to meet objectives in a particular time. We can follow their own rhythm, the rhythm of how things are building up, and work accordingly, and implement changes accordingly on how, without any expectation that one size fits all. And even though we create a framework, we might go beyond that framework, and then we have to recreate it again. So it's very interesting. And I don't actually know if I'm answering the question, but yeah, it's a work in progress.
Yes, no, thank you, Delia. You did answer, and thank you for highlighting these challenges and how you're constantly reflecting and learning while you are adapting the services to the individual needs of the women. We can maybe move on to the next question. Okay, so it's to Lucy. You mentioned that you use data of women, and Marisa is wondering, how do you overcome the data protection issues? But I see that Lucy, you already answered this. You want to expand on that, maybe?
Yeah, just briefly, in case people have already read my answer. But yeah, in order to kind of get around the data protection issues, first of all, both the survey and the local insights elements of the data collection are completely anonymized, so there's no way to identify any of the women who have participated. Participation in the Women's Census survey is completely voluntary, and all women who do participate are given kind of a privacy notice and all of the information about how the data will be used, why, etc. So it's completely up to them whether they want to take part. They don't have to. And I also think that's quite illustrative of how many probably more women there are out there, because actually, you know, with the survey that we're doing, that's just the ones that want to answer. A lot of women obviously might say no on the day or during that week. And with the local insights meetings, yeah, as I said, that all we have is a number from each local authority at the end. There's no identifying information about any of the women, but within the local authority or the council, what there would be for that meeting is a data sharing agreement. And usually what we see within local authorities or councils is those data sharing agreements are there in place already between homelessness services, health services, substance use services, etc., because they tend to be supporting the same cohort of people oftentimes. So yeah, we make sure that that's all kind of signed. And as I said, the resulting data has no identifying information or personal information at all out of women. We're just talking numbers for the national report. Yeah, so that's how we get around kind of any issues around data protection.
Thank you, Lucy. We also have a question from Anne, whether the contacts will be shared. I just want to say that the contacts of all the speakers today and from every organization that is included in the good practice collection, the contact details are there. Feel free to contact organizations. And also you can also contact FEANTSA and me. I just want to ask our panelists today if they would like to share some final thoughts before the webinar is coming to an end. If anyone has some takeaway messages from this morning that you would like to share with the audience? Okay.
I would like to say,
yes,
take care of yourselves, and we don't know each other, but we are together at this time. So it's nice to be in FEANTSA, to have you, to have the possibility to share things together. Thanks a lot, Dalma.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that. Triona?
I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for sharing their services this morning, and just to recognise the commonalities that I've heard from, you know, from across Europe this morning with our own little service here in Waterford, and just really, you know, cheer everybody on and just say we're doing amazing work, and it's lovely to see us celebrating even what appears to be, you know, the most simplest of things, you know, getting a group together, getting stats together and stuff. You know, I just think it's so important in acknowledging the fight that women have in experiencing homelessness. And, you know, together we are powerful when we come together and we share our resources. So thank you for sharing the space with me, and thank you for allowing me to have a space here as well to represent Tintón and the work we do.
Thank you, Triana. It is actually a very nice closing remark to our webinar this morning. Thank you for being part of FEANTSA Women and building this community of practice. Okay, we still have Maria who raised her hand. Yes, Maria?
Yes, we would also like to thank all of you for this opportunity and for the compromise with the women all over these places. Everything was very interesting, and we hope that we still work together to make the situation even better for the woman. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm really glad to finish this webinar on this positive note of and I would like to thank everyone who attended this webinar and for your questions, and special thanks, of course, for the speakers who spent this morning with us. I would like to wish everyone a happy Women's Day, and hope that you will able to participate in celebration or activities in your cities or towns. And thank you again for being with us today. The recordings and the good practice guide will be available, and I will also make sure to share with you all the resources that were mentioned this morning. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. Bye-bye.